The opinions expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of Salem Communications, staff, management, or advertisers. Activist Radio is on the air. You have tuned into the Mark Harrington Show, sponsored by Created Equal. Mark is training a new generation of leaders to take on the culture of death and win.
All right!
If you don't like abortion, don't have one.
The only thing that can be said to be objective truth is that there is no objective truth.
It does come out in one piece. It comes out in one piece.
I would argue that we certainly are not all created equal.
And now, here's Mark.
Are we winning or are we losing? Are we winning or are we losing the battle for life? That's going to be the subject of today's program on the Mark Harrington Show, your voice of resistance here on WRFD. And when I talk about winning and losing, we need to decide what that would look like. Is winning closing all the abortion mills? Is winning ending abortion, legal or decriminalized abortion? Is that winning? And for you Christians out there, does that even matter to you? Or is it about just spreading the gospel? See, I think the two go hand in hand. As we work to evangelize the culture, as we work to disciple the nation, we would win when it comes to abortion. They go hand in glove. And so when you're out there thinking, well, I don't know about this abortion issue. It seems like it's kind of off the beaten path for me. I'm not certain whether I need to be involved in this thing. I'd say, well, I don't think how you can even be a Christian and not do something to stop the wholesale slaughter of preborn babies. It's been happening for 41 years in this country. And I would submit to you that is at the permission of our churches to a great degree. Now, I don't want to sit here and bash churches. That's what I'm about. But certainly the blame, if there's going to be any, would be on the failure of our churches, our individual Christians, the leadership in our country, religious leadership, Christian leadership, to disciple this nation. But I wouldn't say that even though things look dark on a lot of fronts, just look around the world. By the way, it's on fire. Have you noticed? The world's on fire. And the occupant of the White House seems to be fanning the flames by just sitting back and allowing it to happen. But that's another story. We won't talk about that today. But on the abortion front, on the battle for preborn babies, the war continues. And for all measure, I think the pro-life movement is winning. And the best way to do that is just to figure that out, is to actually just listen to the other side and what they are saying. And so we're going to do that for the first couple of minutes here. We're going to play some audio from a program by Bill Moyers. Bill Moyers is a left-leaning, leftist kind of political commentator that has a program on cable. And he had Cecile Richards, who's the president of Planned Parenthood, on. And to Bill Moyer's credit, he actually asked some poignant questions, even though he agrees with abortion. He asks her the hard questions, I think, and you can, if you watch the video, you can tell she squirms a little bit. Her facial, her countenance, you can tell that she's uncomfortable. She's looking down, doesn't look him in the eyes, is nervous about things, looks dispirited, looks like she's losing. So I encourage you, if you're interested, to actually look it up online and watch this video. If nothing else tells you that we're winning, I think just by Cecile Richards' approach to this, the way she handles it, will tell you something, by her mannerisms and so forth. But that's another story. Can't do that on radio. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a couple clips from this, and then I'll respond.
an impartial observer looking on could reasonably conclude that you're losing the political battle over abortion.
I actually don't think that's correct. Now, I will say that in 2010, in the elections where, frankly, the Tea Party swept into the U.S. House of Representatives and took over state legislatures, and they have had a very clear agenda, which is to roll back women's access.
14 years ago, a third of women of reproductive age lived in states considered hostile to abortion access. Now more than half do. Why is that not losing?
I don't think it's the states. I think it's the state legislatures.
Oh, there you go. Well, there's the first clip. Now, she says she doesn't believe that it's true that that the other side's losing, that the abortion side is losing on this. And then she goes on to talk about how the Tea Party swept into power, took over the state legislature. How is that not losing on the political front? And then she says that it's not the people, it's the state legislatures that are responsible for the erosion of quote-unquote abortion rights. Interesting. Don't the state legislatures represent the people? Isn't that how this works in a democracy or a republic? It is the people who are represented by the folks they put in the state houses, who then enact laws that reflect the beliefs of the people. See, it's funny. Planned Parenthood and the rest of them, they don't want to deal with the people. They want to go straight to the courts. And that's how they have gotten where they are in America. So I think it's interesting. Cecile Richards, I think, knows she's losing and they're losing, but just doesn't want to admit it. Here's another clip.
Conceivable to you that your opponents have won the moral argument? That is, they've convinced enough people in conservative circles that abortion is morally wrong, leaving politicians that you talk about no choice but to go where the voters lead.
I fundamentally disagree with that.
Fundamentally disagree again. Now, I would say they haven't lost the moral argument, but they are losing the moral argument. There is no question. If you look at what's happening around the nation, abortion mills are closing, state legislatures are passing laws restricting abortion, and we're going to be talking about that in specific with this the state of Mississippi and Jackson, the abortion mill there in Jackson, Mississippi. So, they are losing the moral argument. It's not lost yet, but we are winning. Now, let's talk. Cecile's going to talk about the hospitals and the role that they play in all of this.
If the services continue to be closed down, as is happening in Texas, why can't hospitals start taking up the slack? Couldn't they offer patients considerably more privacy, for example, than these health centers where there are protesters outside confronting the women?
Many of the hospitals in this country now are owned by the Catholic Church or have Catholic affiliation. They not only will not provide abortion services, they will not provide a whole host of reproductive health care.
Amen to that. In fact, tomorrow we will be out front of one of the local Catholic hospitals that provides privileges to an abortionist. So praise God for the Catholic churches and other Catholic hospitals who have said no to the abortionists, to not giving them admitting privileges. And that is what I consider a weak link in all of this. So, okay, now let's talk about, we're going to let her talk about the Supreme Court decision on buffer zones. And here that is.
What do you think will come from the court's junking of the 35-foot buffer zone?
Well, we're already seeing in Massachusetts that absolutely, immediately after that decision, eliminating the buffer zone, we had record numbers of protesters outside of following women all the way up to the door of our health center in Massachusetts. These are not all kindly elderly ladies simply whispering in the ears, and even if they were, it is the right of women in this country to be able to access health care that they need without harassment and without the advice of dozens of people outside their health center. I mean, can you imagine if men in this country, before going into their doctor, had to walk through a gauntlet of protesters telling them, whether it's not to get a colonoscopy or just go down the list. It's incredible. I think now we've seen challenges to buffer zones across the country.
That one's too funny. I'm sorry. I mean, colonoscopies? Oh, come on. She's really grasping at straws here. The idea that women should remain undisturbed as they go about to kill their baby. Somehow that's a protected right in America. I don't know. That one's a bit far-fetched. And the idea that she's comparing abortion to men having colonoscopies. I didn't know there was a lobbying group making colonoscopies illegal. I haven't seen that one. Have you? I think I missed that somewhere along the way. And then finally, she talks about the so-called war on women.
Certainly some elements of the Republican Party, and unfortunately a lot of the leadership and a lot of politicians in this country, folks who are uncomfortable, I believe, with women being equal in America. And I mean, that's why we can't seem to pass we can't pass an equal pay bill. We don't want to have women access to reproductive health care. And I just don't think young people in this country are going to let them get away with it. And that's what, that's my hope, is that it's our kids and their generation that aren't going to go back to a day when women were second-class citizens in America. Well,
there you go. The so-called war on women, women's health care, comprehensive reproductive health care. These are all euphemisms for abortion, folks. Don't think anything differently when you hear those words. Reproductive services, health care, comprehensive reproductive health care, these kinds of things. This is just abortion. This is just abortion. That's what she's talking about. And the idea that that there's this war on women, that there are people that want to keep women back 50 years ago, that's a bogus argument, isn't it? I mean, there may be some people out there still that think differently, but it certainly is not what it used to be. And the idea that women are being denied access to birth control. I mean, come on. Have you been to the pharmacy lately or Walmart? Please. It's right there. You just have to buy it yourself. I mean, that's like somehow that's infringing upon someone's rights if they have to pay for it themselves. The government should support it. I mean, so this is all a bogus argument by Planned Parenthood. And then finally, in this little clip, which I think is even more important than anything else she said, and she said that the young people will not allow it. And that's where the battle rages right now. It's over our future. It's over our youth, leadership, and that's why Created Equal is focused like a laser on raising up the next generation of leaders to take on the Cecile Richards in the public square, to take on the belief system, the worldview of the abortion industry head on. And folks, we're winning that battle. We're winning that battle. She knows it. That's why she's making an appeal to youth, because she knows that the time's running out on her generation. And the troops aren't coming in to replenish the army on her side. But they are on our side, and that's why we're focused on that. When we get back, I'll be talking to Cheryl Sullenger of Operation Rescue. We'll be talking about what's happening in Jackson, Mississippi, and across the nation as it relates to the closing of these abortion facilities. You're listening to The Mark Harrington Show, your voice of resistance on WRFD. Go to a website at createdequal.net if you want to find out more. We'll be right back.
What do other pro-life leaders think of Mark Harrington and Created Equal? Listen to Lila Rose of Live Action.
Just wanted to say that I stand 100% with the efforts of Created Equal, with getting the truth visually out to students on campuses and inspiring them and equipping them to have that debate with fellow students, to encourage them to really question their support for abortion and encourage them ultimately to see the humanity of the unborn child, the violence of abortion, and ultimately to join our side, which is the winning side, the side of life.
Mark Harrington is a missionary and free speech advocate, and Mark has been on the front line of the debate over abortion for over 20 years. Mark needs your prayers and financial support. Please support Mark and Created Equal by going to createdequal.net or send a check to Created Equal, Post Office Box 360502, Columbus, Ohio 43230. Your gifts are tax deductible.
than 20 pro-lifers hit the streets today trying to shut down Mississippi's only abortion clinic. A 16 WAPT Sadas Brown reports the protesters clashed with nearby business owners.
These women deserve better. You do not have to touch them. It's not too late.
A pro-life group from Ohio in town to shut down Mississippi's only abortion clinic.
We are standing here. We're holding signs, images of abortion victims.
The group began their protest outside the abortion clinic Thursday morning. But when they started putting up signs on the sidewalk across the street, things took a turn.
You have some owners of businesses here who objected to the signs being put outside on the public sidewalk. This isn't the proper way to protest. Two individuals that own a property across the street from the abortion clinic actually began to steal our signs and remove them from the sidewalk.
Nathan Glenn owns Roosters, a restaurant across the street from the clinic. He didn't take the signs down, but says they hurt his business.
They can't get to my buildings, can't get to my front door. I got 4 signs this way, 3 signs behind you.
The man who owns the building took the signs, upsetting the protesters.
He has no right to touch our stuff. I mean, we have the right to this public sidewalk. First Amendment protects our rights.
We checked and found that Jackson City Code does not allow portable signs.
All right, we're going to stop it there. Listen, if you've been paying attention to our program here, you know that the battle is raging in Jackson, Mississippi. And I want to bring on our guest, Cheryl Sullenger from Operation Rescue. Cheryl, thanks for being on the Mark Harrington Show. Cheryl, you there? There you are.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, sorry. Hey, listen, you're familiar with what's going on down there, and I'm not going to go back and recap everything that's happened in the last couple of weeks with us down there. That little clip there from the TV report does that. Let's talk about Jackson. What's going on there? I know that over the years it's been a flashpoint for the abortion issue. You guys are on the front lines of trying to get that place shut down. Give us a background, if you would, as to what's going on and what happened this week.
Well, in Jackson, Mississippi, there's only one abortion clinic. In fact, there's only one abortion clinic left in the entire state of Mississippi. Troy was instrumental in suggesting a law that was passed last year that would require abortion clinics in Mississippi to have hospital privileges before they could do abortions there. And that's just so that the women can have a continuity of care, so that when something goes wrong, which it always does at these places, that the women can get the help that they need in a timely manner. But this abortion clinic fought that law, and
why would they do that?
Well, because none of their abortionists qualify for hospital privileges. So they cannot comply with the law, and that means that they will be forced to close, and that would make Mississippi the first abortion-free state. They're fighting that very, very hard. They're trying to stay open, but you have to understand this abortion clinic is owned by a woman named Diane Durzis, and just last year, while we were working with Father Terry Ginsmer over in Alabama, we were able to actually catch her and her primary abortionist, Bruce Norman, doing abortions illegally in that state. And now Diane has brought Bruce Norman over to Mississippi, and they're continuing the same shoddy practices that got them closed down in Alabama in this state. So this is a very dangerous abortion clinic. It's a shoddy practice. Women are really taking their lives into their hands when they walk in the doors of this place. So this is a really, really bad abortion clinic. I mean, as if there's any good ones.
Right.
But, I mean, particularly dangerous. And so this law would have helped protect women. But like I said, they can't comply with the law. So anyway, a judge had issued a preliminary injunction. The state had appealed that injunction. And then just this week, a ruling came down from the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals that upheld the preliminary injunction, and it's going to keep this abortion clinic open, even though everybody in the world knows that it's a dangerous abortion clinic.
Yeah, and it's breaking the law. I mean, explain the nonsensical decision of this appeals court.
Well, earlier, I believe it was last year, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, a different three-member panel than the three-member panel that ruled on the Mississippi case, ruled that almost an identical law over in Texas was constitutional, and that law shut down half of the abortion clinics in that state. There were like 41, now there's about 20, and they figure by the end of the year there'll only be 6 left. And that's how bad the abortion industry was in that state. None of those other abortion clinics could comply, so they were forced to close. But that almost identical to the state of Mississippi law was ruled as constitutional. But when they took a look at this law in Mississippi, they said, well, wait a minute. This is going to close the last abortion clinic in this state. And even though women can drive shorter distances than they do in Texas to get to an abortion clinic, because they have to cross state lines, we don't think that's right. So we're going to rule that this is unconstitutional because it would close the last abortion clinic in Mississippi. But that opens up a whole can of worms here.
Right, which is the test, the so-called undue burden test, which was established in the Planned Parenthood versus Casey case, which says that you cannot put an undue burden on women to access to abortion. So basically they're saying that the law in and of itself is not a problem. Making privileges available to abortionists, that's something that probably would be a good idea, but because it's going to close the last remaining abortion mill in Jackson, we're going to rule it unconstitutional because it puts an undue burden on women. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Actually, they acknowledged that all of the parts of the law were okay. You know, they could enact them in practically any other state. But what they're saying is basically every state in the United States must have an operating abortion clinic. Now, They don't care if the clinic is safe. They don't care if it complies with medical standards. They don't care about any of that. So what they're really saying is the fact that an abortion clinic is existing and offering abortion is more important than the lives and health of the women that might go to those places. I think that's entirely wrong because it's the whole duty of the state to protect their citizens. And if any other business was endangering the lives of their customers or their patients, they would be shut down without question, even if it was the last one. I mean, let's say it was the last podiatrist in the state of Mississippi. If the guy was killing people, wouldn't they close it down, you know?
Right, or the last casino, or the last, let's say, gun shop, or, you know, where you could legally access firearms or anything like that. This is unbelievable. So, Cheryl, we got about 2 minutes here. Where do we go from here? We know the court system takes forever for this thing to work its way through. Legally speaking, that place is going to stay open. What can we be doing now to try to shut this down and make Mississippi the first abortion-free state in the nation?
Well, I think in a lot of ways it's up to the citizens to go out and pray that this abortion clinic closes, offer help to women, but also it's time for us to take a smart look at what's going on there. And if there are complaints that we can file, we need to file the complaints. If they're hurting women, injuring women, we still have the option with the medical board to revoke medical licenses. And if they don't have any abortionists to do abortions, they're going to have to close.
Right.
And the state isn't going to be able to help that if a private abortion business closed. They're not going to compel them to stay open. So I think that that's an avenue that we should start looking at. Whenever we see women coming out in bad situations, we encourage people to call us. We'll help file complaints with the board down there and do what we can to revoke the licenses of these guys. And that also might give the state extra ammunition when they finally do go into court and have a trial over the constitutionality of this entire bill. Then that'll give them a little more ammunition as well.
My guest has been Cheryl Sullenger from Operation Rescue, one of my favorite organizations. My favorite organization, short of Created Equal, in the nation. They're doing great work and just making these facilities obey the law. That's all we're trying to do. And if they can't comply, hey, too bad. Shut them down. Shut them down. We're trying to do that here in Columbus, too, folks. Join us on the streets of Columbus. Go to createdequal.net. Let us know that you're part of the team. We'll be back next week. God bless you. God bless America. And remember, America, to bless God.
You've been listening to Mark Harrington, your radio activist, sponsored by Created Equal. For more information on how to become a witness against the evil plague in America, call Created Equal at 614-269-7808, 614-269-7808, or go online to createdequal.net, createdequal.net. Be sure to tune to The Mark Harrington Show next time for your marching orders in the culture war.